everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. Quote, Elder Holland says, sometimes we are so close to history, so close to miracles, that we don't even know we are making history or witnessing miracles. End quote. That's a quote from Sarah Jane Weaver. This is on Deseret News under the church news portion of the website in a podcast, episode 56. Okay. She is quoting Elder Holland from a couple years ago in 2021 when Elder Holland, Elder Cook, and President Ballard went to the United Kingdom for a special visit because all three of them had served missions in the UK, and they were having a special um, kind of like they had devotionals there and visits with different people. And I remember him hearing that myself as I was watching one of the videos, but I can't find it. And this is the only thing that popped up when I searched it. So until I find that video, this is the best that I can do. But this is going to be the topic of today's video because recently I was talking about all this wildfire smoke from Canada and how essentially it's something that is darkening the sun, also turning it red, also turning the moon red, also turning the skies orange and yellow and different colors. Very biblical in nature when we think about signs of the last days. And I was talking about the fact that sometimes events like this are so big you can't even wrap your mind around it and even like comprehend it unless you spend a lot of time like I have um, tracking all these different things. In my case, I was tracking all the capital cities, whether they are territory, province, state, national capitals, because I was going under the assumption that the Lord may send messages to the people of earth through their capitals and also major cities and other things too. But we all know that capital cities, or if anything happens to the capital, oh no, everybody loses their mind. And so it makes sense that he would speak that way. And I have some updates on that, by the way. I guess it's actually worse than I thought, even more so than my last video that I did about it. So I'll show you the update with the Canadian wildfire smoke. But there's a whole lot of things that I think are going over the radar, or did I say under the radar? Under the radar, um, because they're so big and also so natural, and they're hard to track. So, for example, with this wildfire smoke, you wouldn't realize how many state capitals and country capitals that had affected unless you did a laborious task, a very monotonous, laborious task like I've done, and you put it on a spreadsheet because no one's reporting it that way. There are a lot of news stories that are like, oh, look at this city, look at this, but I haven't come across an article so far that's included the entirety of it. And so things may go unnoticed because you have to put in the time and effort to actually look at it. No one's going to, um, chew it up for you and then feed it to you, like a mama bird to baby birds. You have to sometimes do the work yourself. Things go unreported, or they're reported, but the data points aren't consolidated in a meaningful way. You get what I'm saying? Sometimes you have to do it yourself. Hopefully that's some of the value of my channel to you. But so let me just show you a few things, okay? So if you want to see the podcast or read the transcript, I'll leave the link for it in the description below. Okay, it comes from this right here. I want to read this. Okay, this is on my spreadsheet called Timeline 10 Lost Tribes. This is where I'm tracking all statements made by all general authorities from Joseph Smith until present to understand, is there really a main group somewhere hidden inside the earth, in space, translated, whatever, can't be seen for some reason, or was that a misunderstanding of the past? And it does seem that that's the case. And I know that because I've gone through all the effort This is a timeline. I've gone through all the effort to note all the different quotes, everything that's been said about it by those who would know, the prophets and apostles. So it's pretty clear. Don't want to beat a dead horse, but before or after 1958, something definitely changed, and this was no longer the narrative or anything that was supported. But I do have a quote all the way back in the very beginning from Joseph Smith himself that goes against the idea. Can't find, where is it? It's not the point of this video. In 1833, but anyway, some other day I'll go over that. Or you can always come to my spreadsheets yourself. The link for it is in the link for my spreadsheets. If you want to access this, is in the description box of each and every video. So just go there, click on it. It'll bring you to this. Okay. And this tab is called Timeline 10 Lost Tribes. So what I'm focusing on for this video is this most recent quote. This is from this year. Okay, this is Elder Bednar. Okay, one of the things with the 10 lost tribes are people are like, well, we know it hasn't happened yet because it has to be a miracle greater than the parting of the Red Sea. That's what it says in the scriptures. In Jeremiah, there's two different verses that basically repeat each other. They're in different chapters talking about how when the tribes of the north, when they come down, it's going to be greater than the parting of the Red Sea. Well, this is what Elder Bednar, an apostle of the Lord, this is what he said this year. So he was in a thing, see, an area-wide broadcast for the Philippines. So some kind of like area or country devotional. By the way, I have the link for it here. It's on YouTube, so you can watch this if you want to. The part that we're going to be looking at is at the 31 minute and 41 second mark, which I also have notated here. Well, 31:21, that's the beginning. The part that I have right here is 31:41, but it actually starts at 31:21. Okay, so he says, so think of Gordon B. Hinckley in the early 1960s coming here, right, to the Philippines and leaving 6 North American missionaries. And that was it. And look at here in and all throughout the Philippines today. This is a miracle greater than the parting of the Red Sea. And it will continue because of the devotion, the consecration, the faithfulness of the members. So certainly a miracle greater than the parting of the Red Sea probably isn't just found in the Philippines. It would probably include just the entirety of the church and how quickly it's grown and many other things that have taken place. But here's an example where he's calling the growth in the Philippines and how much the church is flourishing in the Philippines a miracle greater than the parting of the Red Sea. So it's like really important that we don't have very rigid, limited to our own understanding beliefs about how things are going to play out. Because you're not the one that dictates reality, and neither am I. The best way for us to know where we are prophetically, as far as the fulfillment of prophecies, is by listening to the prophets, apostles, seers, and revelators. Right? We're looking to, in this case, to Elder Bednar. This is something that he said. He is an apostle of the Lord. And that's who I look to for authoritative statements. And I don't minimize them and say, well, that's just his opinion. No. This is something that he's saying to the entire country of the Philippines than anybody else watching. And he's saying it matter-of-factly. I know there's still going to be people that want to rebuttal that. That's fine. You do you. But this is what he said, and this is something that can be missed. Again, it's a time when we're so close to history and so close to miracles that we don't even recognize that it's happening. Would you have ever, on your own, thought about the Philippines and been like, oh, that's a miracle greater than the parting of the Red Sea? Probably not, because the picture is so big. A lot of times we look at the growth of the church as a whole. Maybe we look at our own area, our own country. Maybe sometimes we look at temples, as an indication of growth. But the fact of the matter is that an apostle has said that the Philippines and how much it's grown and how much the church is flourishing is a miracle greater than the parting of the Red Sea. So that just came upon us all of a sudden, something that we probably weren't expecting. I've looked at the basically these two conflicts with Israel, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and then even bigger than that, and more broad, the Israeli-Arab conflict. And I painstakingly went through and I added up all the deaths, and this is on the conservative side of things, of everything from terrorism to IDF deaths to civilians to Palestinians, Egyptians, Jordanians, and then there's more, but they don't have, or also Iraqis. I have Iraqi losses too. Um, and there's even more than that, but they don't report their casualty numbers. I added it all up since Israel became a state because I have this hypothesis that um, this conflict, both of these, the Israeli-Palestinian and Israeli-Arab, really, and this is just again a hypothesis. It's not authoritative. It very well could be that we this is the final war, and it's so big that it's a multi-decade war with many different parts made up of smaller wars and smaller skirmishes and rebellions and everyday terrorism, but essentially that the war that a lot of people are like waiting for a day in the future where the skies are dark and smoky over Israel and there's missiles going all over the place, a nuclear bomb is going off in the distance, and that's when we're finally going to see the final war. I don't think so. As far as the final battle, or battles, whether it's the Battle of Armageddon or the final siege on Jerusalem, that may look closer to that vision. We don't really know. We'll have to wait and see. But I feel like those things could kick off instantly, really fast. And there's been a lot of crazy things happening in Israel. So this is another situation where I feel like we're so close to history that we don't even realize that it's happening. Because you would have to take all this information and consolidate it and really think about it to realize, wow, this is basically just one big, massive war that's going on. Another thing, we've talked about the gospel going to every nation, kindred, and tongue. And there's always people that oppose and say, well, no, missionaries literally have to be in every single nation. Um, and there has to be a ward or a stake or a district or a branch set up in every single country before that can be fulfilled, as though you are in a position to where you can impose those kind of limits. No one has said that. That's the way that you read the scripture. But you're not in a position to interpret it. You're not. We can read it, we can understand it, but we look to the prophets and apostles for the fulfillment of prophecies and the interpretation of scripture. And so what I did is I went here, column C, in everything that's highlighted in green. These are all the countries where we do or have had missionaries. Some of these countries no longer have missionaries in them. For example, like Israel. Where is Israel? It's here somewhere. Oh yeah, 1841, Israel, Palestine. Um, there had been missionaries there for a while, maybe not in large numbers, but they had been there. Anyway, then there's this big black line, and above the big black line are all the countries where we do not have missions or missionaries. But in some of these countries, we have temples. In some of them we have. Well, I'll just read the different things here. Some of them we have temples. Some of them we have districts, branches, stakes, and wards. All right, and a bunch of them are also within less than an hour from a congregation, whether it be a branch or a ward. Some of these are countries within countries, so they wouldn't have necessarily access to the gospel in the country, but they just, because the country's so small, just like in the case of these other places, they could just go to the country that is surrounds them and go to a branch or a ward in that country. So you have to take that into account. So you have all these, and then in addition, you have to take into account all the people that have immigrated from these different countries to other parts of the world. And that is so big and so hard to find. I was only able to really to put together a list of all the different countries that have immigrated, or foreign nationals from these different countries that have immigrated to the United States. But we know that they go to Canada, they go to Europe, they go to Australia, they go to other places that also have where you can come across the missionaries, right? So this is just the numbers from for the United States, and it's only from 2011 to 2020, and you have all these different countries represented. Some of them there isn't any information. So, like Greenland, for example, Falkland Islands, but that's like, I mean, come on. Um, North Korea, I think, was on here somewhere. No, even North Korea has 507 that have come to the United States. But this only represents the United States. Who knows what the numbers are for all of history, or at least for all of this dispensation? And then you have to take into account media, starting with radio, television, all those things, but then up until moving up to recent times, the internet, which is essentially all throughout the world. So, as far as the gospel message going to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people, I'm willing to say that that's probably already happened. I can't declare that because I'm not an apostle or the prophet or anything, and neither can you. But you can see that the gospel probably has gone pretty far and pretty wide at this point, to the point where I would not be surprised if it was officially declared that that had been fulfilled. And there's a lot of quotes that I've collected in General Conference that seem to confirm that. But I've done different videos about that, so you'd have to go check those some other time. Um, or you can go to my quotes A through Z, and you can find it there. And then, and another thing to take into account is the missionary work that the prophet and the apostles themselves do, and they are able to meet with people from countries where there are not missionaries. And they make frequent visits to Israel, by the way. So I have this where I've attempted to try and keep track, and this one's going to be harder to do, but I'm going to try and keep track of all the different places that they go and people that they meet with from different countries. Okay, here's another one. Fish kills and mass die-offs of animals. You get all these like little news stories from like local stations, local media, radio stations, TV stations, local reporting of events that occur. But unless you go out there and you collect them all, which is basically impossible to do, but at least you can capture a lot, you're not really going to see the big picture. And this is just from, let's see, this is from 2013 until present, and undoubtedly there's many, many other incidents that are not represented here on the spreadsheet. But there's a lot of this going on, right? And you wouldn't really know. You just kind of maybe see it from time to time, and maybe only if you're like in that area, or unless like it's like an event on the bigger side where it kind of makes some national news. But so there's a ton of this going on. Same thing with I have a tracker here for naval warfare. Because when we're talking about the sea, we're talking, this would bring up the thought of Revelation, where it talks about the third part of the sea, you know, and people have put forth different ideas. One person said, well, think about all the naval battles that have taken place. And I decided to do a video on that. And this is the number of naval battles that have taken place from the year 1200 BC until current. And so when you look at world history, what period of time has the most naval battles? Oh, it's the last days, especially in the 1900s because of World War II. In fact, the 1900s takes the cake with 248 naval battles. Um, we also have wildfires, right? And I've brought this up a few times. So these are either the largest, which is this red color here, most destructive, which is gray, or deadliest, which is black. Wildfires in these territories, provinces, states, and countries. History, recorded history. And it really starts right here in 2004. Through time, I'm going to try and continue to update this, and I have an update to share with you in just a little bit. But you can see that since 2004, there's a lot of places that have had their biggest, deadliest, most destructive wildfires, and significant places like Canada, California, the entire country of Russia, Colorado, Washington State, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, Idaho, so on and so forth, all within this century. In fact, less than 20 years, because we're in 2023, and the first one that I have on here, except for this one back in the 80s, the first one that I have on here is the 2004 Taylor Complex fire in Alaska. Excuse me. So, um, unless you're collecting all these stories and putting them together on some kind of chart or a spreadsheet, it's going to be hard for you to realize just how bad it actually is. And it is really bad. And like I said, uh, just like every other spreadsheet, this one is undoubtedly complete. It's going to take me time to find more data and then update the chart. But it's really, really bad. And these are things that are going under the radar for probably the majority of people. You know, who in their right mind would put together a chart like this unless you're doing a second coming, like a watching for the signs of the second coming YouTube channel like me, or a blog, or, something else. So things are happening. People aren't realizing what's happening. Maybe to some small degree they are. A lot of people probably have a general sense, oh, things are getting worse and worse, but they don't have the specifics and don't truly understand just how bad it actually is. Okay, so that brings us to um, this business with all these capital cities, and then we're going to go into the recent events that have happened, like within the last 24 hours, most of them. Before I do that, here's the update on the Book of Mormon sharing challenge, or the Flood the Earth challenge. I haven't updated it since yesterday, but we're at 6,160 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared, with 618 people that have participated. Please consider doing this if you haven't already. And if you've shared less than 10, try and get up to 10. That's going to be the channel goal. That's what has been the channel goal. And if we could all hit 10, this number would go up quite a bit. Okay. You might be like, well, it already looks like almost everybody has shared 10. Well, if you average it, yeah, but there's a handful of individuals that have shared quite a bit. So it's not really how it works. So if everyone could share 10, this number would shoot way up. So try and do that if you can. Okay. Okay, so here is some of the updates for this spreadsheet that I'm calling Timeline Capitals. So I have another state capital that was affected by the Canadian wildfire smoke. And it's actually my earliest entry on this spreadsheet. It was Olympia, Washington State, on the 17th of May. Okay, so you had them, and I'll show you some of the I'll show you the articles that support this. We have Salem, Oregon on the 5th of July, which unbeknownst to me was affected by the Canadian wildfire smoke. There was a haze, a darkening of skies, whatever you want to call it, over the city. And then we have Salem, Oregon again, as a new fire is creating a haze over the city. And then we have Frankfort, Kentucky, that within the last 24 hours has become flooded. There's been down power lines and trees. So I have the grand total of all the United States, well, no, all the US states and then Canadian provinces and territories that have been affected by the Canadian wildfire smoke. And as of yesterday, this was at 30, but now it's at 32. 32 of 50 US state capitals have seen this wildfire smoke. And correspondingly, that would mean that the sun has been darkened to some degree and the moon has been turned to blood, undoubtedly. And basically, for any given capital, you can find pictures of the downtown area and the smoke and what the sky looked like. And I'm pretty sure that the sun and or the moon were red for all these different places. I'm mentioning that because of the scriptures that talk about the sun being darkened, the moon turned to blood. There's many different ways that that can happen, but this is one event that is affecting all these different capital cities. And in addition to that, major cities like Seattle, New York City, Detroit, Philadelphia, Minneapolis. I'm just keeping track of capital cities, but you have to take into account all these other cities, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, places like that, Portland, Oregon. So this is actually a pretty dramatic event. And like I said in a previous video, I'm not so sure that something like this has really happened. I know that there's been, for example, Mount St. Helens that erupted, but I don't think, I'd have to go back and research it, but I highly, highly doubt that it would have covered as many capital cities as what this is doing. Because this is really, really broad. You can see the smoke right here. In fact, just by eyeballing it, it looks like it's covering more than half of Canada. And then it's coming down here into the United States. Right now, it's looking a little bit on the better side. But if you go a few days back, not so much. You can see it coming all the way down here, all the way down to Georgia, maybe even a little bit in Florida. Really bad, really spread out over a very, very large area. And not to forget Europe that also saw the smoke, in particular Lisbon, Portugal, and Madrid, Spain. Okay. So yeah, we just went up to 32 from 30. And I think at this point I probably have it all. I guess I'll just have to check and see if there's anybody else that I forgot. But anyway. Okay, so let's go into the news stories. So this is from WDBJ7. I'm not sure where this is out of. This is out of Roanoke, Virginia. Okay, we haven't seen the last of the wildfire smoke from Canada. So this is Virginia, and this is dated yesterday, July 19th. Canada has experienced its worst wildfire season ever, and conditions continue to worsen as drought and heat intensify. Over 27 million acres, larger than the state of Kentucky, have burned since January 1st. On average, about 2 million acres burn in Canada annually. So I've updated my number of acres burned. If we go back to my wildfire spreadsheet, before I made this update, it was at 24 million. So it's gone up another 3 since that time. And and we are not through the wildfire season. Okay, I'm gonna have to double check on this British Columbia one. How many acres? I don't have the acre. Oh, that's because there were no acres to report at that time. I'll have to go back and see how big this one is. But British Columbia, as part of this broader event, is experiencing its worst or its largest wildfire of all time, which beats out the one in 2018, the Tweedsmuir complex fire. That used to be in the number one spot, 2018, but now it's this year, the Donnie Creek wildfire. All right, so there's an update on that. Stunning sunrises over Seattle the past week due to Canadian wildfire smoke. And there you see the sun. It's a really blood red or dark red color. Looks a little ominous. Looks a little apocalyptic. That's what they're seeing up there in Seattle. Seattle, a blazing red sun in the eastern sky has been our wake up around Seattle. Here's some more pictures of it from a tweet. And then here's some more. Both tweets are from the National Weather Service Seattle. So this is a different set of pictures right here. This is from May 17th. Wildfire smoke from Canada impacting Seattle skies. So Seattle's not the capital of Washington, but it says here, it may only be the middle of May, but wildfire season is already impacting the Seattle region with smoke from Canada. Wildfires have been burning over northern Alberta for over a week. Smoke from those wildfires have now drifted south and arrived in western Washington, creating hazy skies. I tried to find an article specifically talking about Olympia, but I couldn't. But you'll notice that Olympia is basically, it's like at the very southern extreme of well, I'm sure Tacoma probably counts as a separate metro area according to the Census Bureau. I'm not sure, but you can see that it's generally in the same region as Seattle. Seattle is further north, but it talked about western Washington having this smoke. So it is an assumption, but I think it's a pretty safe assumption that Olympia also saw the wildfire smoke. So I added that to the list. Okay, I hate how these videos just automatically play, even though you paused it. Pacific Northwest sees hazy skies Wednesday, air quality advisory issue. This is from July 5th, and now we're talking about Salem, Oregon. Okay, Portland, Oregon. People in the Portland metro area and other parts of Oregon woke up Wednesday morning to hazy skies caused by wildfires burning in Canada. The Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, the DEQ, and other regional agencies have issued an air quality advisory for the Portland, Vancouver, Salem, and that's the capital city, and Eugene, Springfield metro areas until Wednesday evening. I don't think there was anything else here. Smoke from fire at Longview Paper Mill moving into Portland and Salem. This is from yesterday, July 19th, and this is that other listing that I mentioned how Salem once again is having hazy skies, but this time it's from like a man-made fire or accident, right? So Salem is seeing a lot of hazy skies. All right. Okay, now we're in Kentucky. Flooding, outages, down power lines, and trees reported in Frankfort area. Frankfort is the capital of Kentucky. A major storm moved through Benzie County on Thursday, knocking out power and causing flooding. The city of Frankfort is asking residents to avoid travel if possible while crews deal with downed trees and power lines. The Garden Theater is also reporting major flooding. I tried to look that up. I think this is a typo because I couldn't find any Garden Theater in Frankfurt, but there is a Grand Theater And it looks like it's right in the downtown area. Let's look at the satellite. Don't have any 3D buildings here, but it does look like it's like in the central part of the city. So, and you can see the river over here. So anyway, major flooding, it would seem, downtown Frankfurt. So I added that to the list. Kentucky declares state of emergency as historic rainfall floods communities. A pretty dramatic picture of a parked car, which is now sinking into the street because the street broke, snapped, collapsed. A road near Mayfield in Graves County, Kentucky, on Wednesday following a washout that saw 11.28 inches of rain fall in 24 hours, according to preliminary National Weather Service data. Kentucky's governor declared a state of emergency Wednesday after historic rainfall inundated parts of the state, and forecasters said additional storms are, quote unquote, extremely saturated ground. Additional storms on extremely saturated ground overnight raised fresh flooding concerns. The big picture. Governor Andy Beshear urged people to, quote, pray for Mayfield and areas of western Kentucky. So this is like not talking about the Frankfurt area, but this is like west of there. Impacted by significant flooding from last night's storms, end quote, as officials responded to the damage. The city in Graves County is still recovering from a December 2021 tornado that left 57 people dead, the Washington Post notes. Okay, so there was a big storm, and maybe it was like the remnants of the storm or the continuation of the storm that affected Frankfurt, but I noted Frankfurt. And then some of you have already commented on this. I'm not going to put this on any timeline, but I'm going to take note of it. Entire roof came off. EF3 tornado rips through Nash, Edgecombe, or Edgecombe, I don't know, Edgecombe County line. So this is in North Carolina, not too far from Raleigh, which is the state capital, but it does not appear that it was in the metro area. An EF3 tornado with winds up to 150 miles per hour was reported in Rocky Mount, a city on the border of Nash and Edgecombe counties, North Carolina, Wednesday afternoon, the National Weather Service announced. So I looked that up on the map, and Rocky Mount is over here. Okay, it's a pretty good ways from Raleigh, so I'm not going to put this on my capital cities tracker, but let's go back to it. The tornado's path started just west of Nashville. And Nashville is just like right over here. Okay, so still not in the Raleigh metro area. I'm including the cities themselves, like the cities proper, as well as their metro areas, if you haven't noticed. So anyway, so it went something like this. Okay. Traveling northeast through Red Oak, crossing Interstate 95, and da-da-da-da-da. All right, so there you go. There's a little bit more to it. The News and Observer drone photos show extensive tornado damage to Pfizer plant in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And so, Pfizer, it's a pharmaceutical company, and it hit what looks like to be a sizable plant. The Pfizer pharmaceutical plant that produces medications was damaged. Here are drone photos that show the destruction. So hopefully that doesn't cause too many issues for people that need those medications. I know that there's many of you that are like anti-pharmaceutical through and through, and that's fine. I'm not one of those. I'm sure there are a lot of fishy things going on. There's a lot going on with prices and stuff like that. But I'm not part of the whole pharmakia. See, this is spells and witchcraft and stuff like that. I'm not part of that group. So if you believe that, that's fine. I've heard the arguments for it. I feel like I can attest to the fact that there are medications that are beneficial to humanity that help you. By the way, I've stopped taking the bupropion. I couldn't do it anymore. It was making me too agitated. Um, and I'm actually feeling pretty okay, but I still do need the hydroxyzine, which is for anxiety. It's also an antihistamine, so it helps with my allergies. So, but that's just an example where it absolutely does help. Do some of them have the ability to cure diseases and they're just like wanting to milk us for money? I wouldn't be surprised in some cases. I think some people get maybe a little bit blown out of proportion with it. Um, and that's part of that. I think, again, we want to be careful not to be zealots and just look at things in black and white terms, like either the pharmaceutical companies are all good or all bad. I think there's a lot of good going on, and there's probably some elements of bad, but we can't just paint the entire industry as evil. Um, I'm pretty sure there are some diseases and things that can't be cured at the moment. They genuinely can't be cured, and they're providing us with some of our best options right now. So that's another one where it's like you, just like so many things in life, you have to study it. You have to study it, and you have to be honest with yourself and not let your bias overcome you. And differentiate between, okay, this is actually okay. There's nothing wrong with this drug that's being produced, but this one, I don't know. There's a lot of evidence that maybe this isn't necessary. Maybe it's worse than it causes more bad than it does good. Um, there's shady characters attached with this one. You know what I mean? So don't be a person that just like, oh, all of it's bad. I have to eat everything natural, which that's good. But I mean, just please avoid extremes. It's not good. Okay, the next one. Uh, this is giving you an update. I already have this on the spreadsheet, but this is what Raleigh looks like right now. This is dated. Where's the date on it? This is dated July 18th. This is what downtown Raleigh looked like. Canadian wildfire smoke. It's still going on. It's still going on. And then the last thing, let's talk about this wildfire going on near Athens. So the last update was it didn't seem like it was under control whatsoever based on the article that we read. This is from Globe World News Echo. Firefighters contain major fire around Athens. Fear extreme heat may cause new fires to erupt. This is dated today. Let me just give you some of the highlights here. Greece's fire service intensified water drops west of Athens, where a huge blaze was contained overnight, as authorities braced Thursday for new round of extreme weather. Later on, searing heat across Europe's Mediterranean south has maintained a high or very high risk of fires in Spain, Italy, and Greece. Which makes sense because as we go over here, these are the pretty much the southernmost countries of Europe. Greece right here, Italy, Spain. So you can see probably why. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis said the fire service and civil protection authority would remain on alert as a new heat wave moved eastward across Greece. Temperatures are expected to reach 113 degrees Fahrenheit Sunday. Quote, the hard times are clearly not over yet, Mitsotakis said, and then continuing, we are facing another heat wave and a possible strengthening of winds. So absolute vigilance and absolute readiness are required over the next few days. And then after that, that's end quote. And then a state of emergency was declared Thursday on the island of Rhodes, where evacuation orders were issued for several mountain areas. So, and that's it. That's all the updates that I have for you at this time. So we added some new events to the capital cities spreadsheet, and then the main thing about this story the main thing about the main theme of this video is to be aware that things could be happening, but they're so big that you may not be aware that it's happening. It could be a really long, drawn out event, or it may be an event, maybe not so long, but there's all these different data points that are all significant. And unless you compile them all and see the big picture, you won't realize just how bad it is, right? Hopefully, the effect that this wildfire smoke has on some people, say, in Indianapolis, Indiana, the capital of that state. Hopefully some people look out their windows in the morning and the sun is red and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it looks like the apocalypse out there." And then maybe a certain percentage of those will take that serious. Maybe as they read news stories, and there's a whole plethora of them talking about wildfires and stuff, maybe they'll start to maybe take things a little bit more serious. You know, it doesn't matter why these are happening or who is causing them, whether it's nature or whether it's mankind, whether this is some kind of asymmetric warfare, weaponizing nature and natural disasters against other countries. We've discussed that before. It doesn't matter the cause. What matters is the effect that it's having on people and if it's waking people up. Ultimately, the cause would be the Lord, whether he is actively doing it or if he's allowing it to happen with the purpose of waking his children up before his arrival. All right, well, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.